Whoa, Joe, that was fast. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicholas Johnston. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thank you so much for being here. This is year 3 of BFD for us. I love our events. They're the physical manifestation of our journalism. It lets us see all of our readers are real people. It lets all of you see that Dan Primack is a real person, not a newsletter writing robot sent from the future. So thank you all so much for being here to help make this possible. And also, we're hugely grateful to our partners at Axios who make everything we do, all the investments in journalism, possible. And so a huge thanks to Lightspeed Venture Partners for being one of our partners today to make BFD happen. And I'm very excited, therefore, to welcome to the stage for a view from the top conversation, Guru Chahal, a partner at Lightspeed. Guru, welcome to the Axios stage. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So let's start kind of big picture. Give us a little bit of an overview of Lightspeed and your role and what do you do?
First of all, thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be here and speak to this audience. A little bit about Lightspeed. We are a 25-year-old firm. We operate in the private markets. We invest in technology companies. We have about $30 billion in assets under management. Over the last 25 years, we've been very fortunate to back some great institutions and generational companies in the public markets. We've invested across 4 technology cycles at this point. We started our journey with investing behind companies in the internet cycle, in the late 2000s in the mobile cycle, in cloud in the early 2010s, and now, of course, over the last several years in AI, which we're pretty excited about.
I mean, we can't have an event anywhere on earth without talking about AI under federal law. So let's dig into a little bit of that. Your view of AI, how it might fit as a super cycle is a word people use a lot. Tell us what you're seeing in that.
So the way we view it from an early stage investing perspective, we believe we are in what you might think of it as phase 2 of AI. So phase 1 would be starting about 2 years ago when we had this magical moment where we all used ChatGPT and suddenly realized that this thing is really magical. It's truly transformational. Yeah. And so for over the last 2 years, we've all seen founders furiously building on top of this new capability in the landscape and build some really interesting businesses. Now this phase 2, so that was phase 1. This phase 2 is about this coming realization that, wow, this is real. The numbers are beginning to show up. We're talking about billions of dollars of value being created in these markets, not just in enterprise value, but actual business that is happening.
Right.
And so that's been really exciting to see in this sort of second phase of AI.
Well, dig in a little bit more into that. How does that translate itself into the real world, into companies deploying this? Where does, again, phase 1 is ooh, this is really cool. But now, what does it do?
Yeah, so the way to think about this is, in this wave, it's both about the size of the wave, that's where people are deploying this, and the speed at which they're deploying it, both of which are really interesting. In terms of size, to give you a sense for the numbers, the entire enterprise software sector, where we invest, for instance, is about $900 billion market today. And all of that is accessible to AI, all of that gets transformed with AI. But in addition, AI gives access to technology companies to reach into the services sector, which is another $2 to $3 trillion. And that's where we're seeing tremendous amounts of innovation. So we're seeing innovation in workflow automation, knowledge worker automation, exponential growth in these businesses, in almost any business that takes unstructured data, whether it's in legal tech, healthcare, knowledge work, and then generate some sort of a structured information coming out of it.
Are these more, in your sense, more realistic applications as opposed to the gee whiz stuff? We see on social media, oh, it'll make movies by itself or control all these crazy stuff. Where the real value is in this phase 2 is maybe not super exciting, but super valuable.
Yeah, so look, we love the gee whiz stuff too. We were early investors in companies like Snap and others.
Yeah.
They're massive businesses to be built when you really impress consumers and capture their attention. But the real stuff is, I'll give you an example of a couple of companies in our portfolio. One that I can't live without, which is a company called Glean, which connects to internal enterprise databases and data and is able to answer questions just like you might ask a colleague. It's hey, how much did we invest in Glean in 2019? And it'll answer those questions. So this ability to distill insights from knowledge is one use case. Another use case, one of my favorite, is we connected with a company called Abridge earlier this year, and we led their recent round of funding. The CEO is a doctor who wanted to improve patient care and the doctor-patient experience. And today, if your doctor is an Abridge customer, you can walk in and just have a conversation with the doctor. The entire conversation gets automatically transcribed. The medical note gets generated, uploaded into Epic or another EMR, and from there, action items get automatically assigned to the appropriate people to schedule a follow-up or send a note to the pharmacy, et cetera. So just really day-to-day, very, very real use cases that are showing tremendous value and resulting in some of the fastest growing businesses in our
And
portfolio.
this is the stuff that's coming now. This is part of that phase two.
That's exactly right.
That's
exactly right. So to give you a sense for the numbers, we've all seen NVIDIA. So no question, right at the bottom of the stack, there's just tremendous value creation. NVIDIA has gone from about 20 billion or 10 billion in revenue in 2020 to over 60 billion by 2024. So in 4 years, it's 6x its business. The layer above that is the foundational model layer, where we believe a lot of value will continue to get created. So foundational model layer are companies like Anthropic and OpenAI and Google's Gemini and Mistral and others. This layer has gone from sub 100 million in total revenue in 2021-22 timeframe to our estimate is about $6 to $8 billion in revenue right now. So that's the second layer. And what I'm talking about with the bridge is the next layer up, which is applications. And we are seeing application companies go from zero or a standing start to 10, 20, 30, 50 million in revenue.
And that's when you get into a real super cycle as that begins to spread.
That's exactly right. So today it's infra at the bottom, NVIDIA, foundation model layers, and applications. This will invert over the next decade, where certainly there'll be tremendous value still to be had in infrastructure layers and foundation model layers, but applications is really where.
Let's widen that view then a little bit. Can you give us a sense of what is the macro investing environment then, even separate from AI, or does the AI spill into everything?
AI certainly spills into everything, but in the macro environment, it's especially given the nature of the audience here, I'll point out a couple of things that we've been noticing. We got our start back in 2000. At that time, if you look at the total number of venture capital firms, we were about I'd say about 1,000 venture capital firms managing about 200 billion in overall capital. Today, 20 years later, we're about 10,000 venture capital firms managing close to 2.2 trillion in capital.
Right.
And so why is that happening? That's happening for basically two key reasons at the macro level. The first one is a vast amount of new value creation in the economy worldwide is in technology. Today, the top 5 companies by market cap are all 5 are technology companies. Interestingly, all 5 venture-backed in some cycle or other. So that's one. Tremendous amounts of value creation in technology. So technology represents about 10% of the GDP today. That's up 3x from 25 years ago. We expect that to continue with the rise of these applications that give access to the services sector, which is the largest sector in the economy. So that's one. The second reason, and the more profound reason why I'm really excited personally, is a lot of the value capture is now increasingly happening in the private markets. The average company, when we got our start, used to be in the private markets for 3, 4, 5 years before they IPO'd.
Yeah.
Today, the average time is 12 years. Now, to give you a sense for how profound that is, if just 3 companies, Salesforce, Google, and Amazon, had stayed private for 12 years, the value capture in private markets would be over $200 billion just from those 3 companies. And so an increasing amount of value capture is happening in the private markets, which is where we
Well, then how do you, this always comes up at BFD almost every time we talk about that expanding private market. How do you navigate that? What is your approach to success with that change in the market?
Yeah, so we have always stayed true to our principles. The first one is find generational companies that are addressing the largest market opportunities. So big markets. Find the absolute best teams that are addressing those markets, exceptional founders that can execute to that market opportunity. 3, partner with them very, very early. That's the ethos of our business. So we got our start writing the first inception stage checks into large public institutions today. We stayed true to that. And since then, we have now expanded to multiple sectors and being global and investing across stages.
All right, so we've got your investment philosophy here. We're about to get the hook and run out of time, but we love to end Axios on a one fun thing. I'm going to make this a one portfolio thing. I know you love all your children equally, but if you had to pick a couple of your investments, what are things that really excite you? What are things we should keep an eye on?
So a couple I've already mentioned, Glean and Abridge. I'll mention one more. I know I'm breaking the rule with 3. This morning, if you haven't seen announcements from Anthropic, watch a video that they just uploaded this morning where the latest and greatest AI model controls and interacts with your computer in the same way you and I would. And you give it a simple prompt saying, hey, I just got this questionnaire. Please go to these 2 or 3 data sources, look up this data and fill this questionnaire and submit it, and the thing does it automated.
It goes and does.
It looks up the information in a spreadsheet, in some internal database, takes out the appropriate information, fills out the form, hits submit, and it's done. That's
this is a real thing. This is
a real thing. They just announced it this morning.
All right,
We've been very
excited
excited
on my laptop and check that out. That was super fascinating. Guru, thanks you so much for being here. Huge thanks to Lightspeed for being a partner with us today. Stick around. The conversation continues.
Great.